In times of crisis like we find ourselves in right now, I think it's easy to ask the question, why does God allow us to suffer like this? And with all the things my own family has had to go through over the past couple of weeks, I definitely had a moment where I had to retreat away into a quiet place in my home and just let it all out. And I honestly can't remember the last time I had to do that. Before I carry on with my thoughts on this topic, can I just say that I can sympathize with the fact that in times of crisis like this, we may want to look for anything that looks like a sign of relief or hope, which is why I'm a bit dumbfounded by the fact that more Catholics aren't relentlessly talking about the fact that the patron saint of victims of epidemics is someone named Saint Corona. Early on, I saw a couple people tweet about it as if it was a neat curiosity and nothing more, but seriously, how is it that we aren't rallying around this as a lifeline of hope and a sign from God? We should be making sure that every Catholic knows about this and then rallying together in devotion for this lesser known saint. She should be on the tip of every person's tongue every time we pray. So I felt some consolation when Sophia Institute Press sent me this pack of prayer cards to Saint Corona, because they obviously have the same idea. They said that they want to get at least 1 million Catholics praying to her as a patroness of this epidemic. So I'm going to include a link in the description to this video, as well as in the comments, depending on where you're watching it from, for where you can get yourself a pack of these cards as well, and you can give them to family and friends. My family and I have already started praying this prayer on a daily basis, and I think it would be a great thing if we could all rally around this initiative that Sophia Institute Press has started. I hope there's something to be said about how deprivation and suffering can teach us to be grateful for the good things that we have. Because long before this tribulation that we are all going through, there was a disturbing trend in the world that I think is worth revisiting. According to a 2016 survey conducted by market research company YouGov, only 6% of respondents in the United States said that all things considered, things are getting better. And in Germany and the UK, that number was 4%, and only 3% in France. But in reality, according to all the metrics that sociologists and governments like to measure, especially those related to well-being, the fact is that things have actually substantially gotten better over the past several centuries. And while it is really interesting, instead of going through all of those statistics in this video, I'm just going to leave a link in the description on YouTube for you to take a look for yourself. So how is it that we can have so much to be grateful for, and yet our instinct is to decry how bad things are and, against all facts, insist that they're actually getting worse? The simple answer is, and I hope it's something that I'll be able to unpack a little bit more in this video, there's something wrong with us. We take things like wealth, health, prosperity, and safety for granted, or worse, we abuse them. Let's take a look at money as an example of what I'm talking about. Money has all kinds of negative associations with it, and lots of people love to call it the root of all evil. And whenever there's some kind of disparity, we love to denounce the rich simply for having more money than the rest of us. But when you break down what money is, it's pretty difficult to make the claim that it's intrinsically evil. Money is basically a tool that multiplies choice. So in the hands of a benevolent person, it will multiply their ability to make benevolent choices. In the hands of a selfish person, it will multiply their ability to make selfish choices. And so while it multiplies our ability to make choices, it also multiplies the consequences of those choices, which is where I think the negative connotations generally come from, because generally people with excessive wealth tend to use that excessively on themselves. Something I've noticed during this lockdown is a trend among celebrities to make tours of their extravagantly luxurious houses and post them on social media, which I think is a bit of a testament of their own selfish inclinations, that when they have the ability to multiply or make more choices than the rest of us, they tend to fixate on material comfort and luxury exclusively for themselves. So it's no wonder that so many of us tend to resent the wealthy. Their wealth acts like an amplifier for their bad decisions and bad character, and the same would probably be true for any of us in their position. But again, money could be argued to be a good thing if you say that it's just a tool that multiplies your choices. Again, in the hands of a truly good person, that could only be a good thing. So why is it that when we fall into possession of some good thing like wealth or prosperity or freedom, the effects so often fall short of what we might expect from ourselves or from other people? Again, what this underlines for me is that there's something fundamentally wrong with us. If you take something that is morally neutral or even good, like wealth or power, and place them in the hands of human beings who end up misusing them, then I think that that's pretty strong evidence that we carry some sort of moral defect within us. In terms of a simple equation, if you take something that is known to be a moral good, like wealth or power, and you mix that with something that is morally ambiguous, and the result is something that is morally suspect or just plain evil, then it's safe to say that that morally ambiguous element, in this case that's us, is to blame. Every major pre-modern philosophy or religion had the fortitude to admit that human beings are flawed and need correction. Christianity doctrinally defines that as the fall, and with it our fallen nature. And among all these belief systems, they all proposed various kinds of remedies for correcting that dysfunction. And these remedies almost always come through some kind of program of sacrifice, self-denial, or mortification. We see this in all the major monotheistic religions. We see it in the ancient Greco-Roman philosophy, and we see it in countless pagan cults. So when we ask the question, why do bad things like this happen to us? Some of the time it's by our own design when we think of things like wars. Other times it happens to us, like pandemics. And the reason for it is because we need to be reminded of our own dysfunction, because without those reminders, we so easily forget it. C.S. Lewis said something like, God whispers to us in our pleasures, he speaks to us in our conscience, and he shouts to us in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. When things are going our way, we easily succumb to the mistaken idea that there's nothing wrong with us. And that's when we do stupid things like start wars or become so blinded by our own prosperity that we can't appreciate the good things that we have until they're taken away from us. If there really is something wrong with us, and I'd say it's pretty evident that there is, then the best thing for us is for the universe or reality or God to announce that fact through some kind of adversity. Now, it's easy for us to resent God and think of him as some sort of remote puppet master who is indifferent to our suffering. And it reminds me of a scene in a movie that I liked as a teenager, but I'm sure that if I saw it again now, I probably wouldn't appreciate it very much. But the movie was The Devil's Advocate, and it starred Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. Al Pacino was playing like the devil incarnate, basically. And in this climactic scene, Al Pacino gives this speech and he accuses God of being an absentee landlord. And then he goes on to congratulate himself for being a man of the people who's down in the muck with the people while God looks on remotely from heaven. Well, you might be able to make that case with most rival conceptions of God, but you certainly can't say that about God as he is proposed in the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus who was God incarnate, the Word made flesh. Not only is Jesus a God who willingly becomes a tenant within his own creation, he chooses the worst accommodations. The last thing you can say about Jesus is that he's an absentee landlord, remote and indifferent to the human experience. Jesus is a God who willingly suffers alongside us, even though he doesn't have to. He experienced unspeakable physical torment, psychological anguish, and social rejection, so that when you or I go through something similar, he can relate to that experience, not as a divinity remote from the human story, but one who can say he knows what we're going through, and he's going to help us through it. And this even includes feelings of abandonment by God. Jesus cried out on the cross, my God, why have you abandoned me? So that in my own experience of retreating away to the dark storage room of my house and breaking down and saying, God, where are you in all of this? He was actually right there willing to pick me back up so that I could try again. That is what Christians commemorate this week at Easter. Friday is the day that Jesus suffered and died on the cross, and Sunday is the day that he rose again from the dead. And if you've never explored that story for yourself, now is as good a time as ever. I think you'll be surprised by what you find there. Thank you so much for watching that. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you got something out of it. And if you did, and you want to consume more content like this, then please consider subscribing to my channel. Or if you saw this on Facebook, then like my page and follow along. If you're on YouTube, it's not enough anymore to subscribe because YouTube wants to think that it can tell you what you should watch instead of what you actually want to watch. So in this case, you actually have to hit that little bell to be notified as to whether or not I've uploaded something more recently. So please subscribe and hit the bell at the same time. That really helps me out a lot. And if you could consider sharing this among your social network, that helps me a lot too. And if you want to support the making of these videos, please consider supporting my business, which is a communications and strategic marketing company who specializes especially in branding and web design. And this is especially catered towards ministries and apostolates and parishes. We have a parish web design system that we've built specifically for parishes and churches that is affordable, but also beautifully packaged and easy to use. So if you're interested in that, check out my business, which is holdsworthdesign.com, and hit the contact button in the navigation and get in touch, and we can figure out if there's a good fit for you there.